take-home message from this talk is going to be that RRP is not just a local lesion, it's likely a systemic immunologic recognition and failure to produce the proper responses by inducing Th2 T regulatory immune suppression like tone, which in these patients who are predisposed to this one virus, they're otherwise healthy people who make normal responses, they are prone to having chronic infection with this virus, which is non-cancer producing in most cases, but certainly sets the stage for a tumorigenic environment which then can be exploited later on by the chronic infection with oncogenesis with the different higher tumorigenic HPVs, which are related to the ones we're going to talk about. Okay, so to begin, I think the incidence of this disease, it's rare, which gave me the initial impression that this is a host defense problem because the colonization in the airway is up to 5%, and HPVs are probably part of the normal microbiology flora of human epithelial cells. So the fact that very few get this suggests that there's something about the host that predisposes them, and the immunologic component needed to be addressed, and we started 25 years ago and come significantly towards understanding a little bit about how the immune system is permissive to the virus and allows the virus to remain chronic and induce disease. So a little bit of E6 and E7, the early proteins. I'll be talking a little about E6 later on. You can see basically because of the airway obstruction that there's great morbidity and an occasion mortality, not from oncogenesis, but because of the structural position of these lesions, and occasionally in the trachea. Okay, this papilloma issue, the failure of maturation, which is timed with the maturation of the virus in terms of the expression of the virus, so maturation is prevented. There's mild, moderate, and severe disease, and severe disease, I think, looks like a SIN3 cancer predisposing cervical disease versus mild, moderate, which would be like a SIN1, SIN2. Okay, so I just wanted to start with saying when we did a 22,000 gene chip analysis, we saw very clearly that the less tumorigenic HPVs clearly polarize cells towards oncogenesis, but not exactly the way it is. But if you look at the genes that are perturbed, I have listed here, and it's a busy slide. In general, the direction of the perturbation of the tumor versus the normal adjacent tissue is in the same direction as many cancers. So these viruses do polarize the cells very similarly to some cancers, and yet they don't take the final step towards oncogenesis. So the hypothesis was initially that immune dysregulation is biased towards suppression and regulation, and that supports chronic HPV infection only in these patients who are set up by the virus. So the virus selects them to allow a progression of disease rather than clearance and removal of this infection, which is probably much more common than we think in the airway, and yet only a few people get this disease. And we do think that multiple genes in the immune response need to be wrong or set in a way that is permissive to the virus to allow a person to develop this disease. And the greater the collection of genes that are quote-unquote supportive of the virus and fail to clear the virus, the more likely to develop severe disease. So I want to show you some evidence previously published in our lab of the bias towards Th2-like immune dysregulation, and provide some evidence that this is not just a local disease, that the immune system sees this systemically.